Hey guys, welcome back. In this new series, we're going to complete the entire equilibria chapter of physical chemistry from A to physics chemistry. So, I've divided the entire equilibria into around how many? 7 or 6 chapters. 7 chapters. So, you're going to have around 7 videos for this. Amazing. So, everything of our chemistry syllabus, A2 physics or A2 chemistry, will be available on sciencestadium.com from now on, right? The reason we have made this is to make your studying much more easy, convenient, and distraction free. All the videos will be there, and it is assigned as a roadmap. You can convert everything to your own pace and your own modular order. And we'll also have more features, and we'll be tracking performances, and yeah, there are many things affiliated with that. I've already explained it in one of the videos, so you can go ahead and check it out. Upon signing up, you'll get everything available. Great. So equilibria, this is a chapter from physical chemistry, and what do we want to learn from this chapter? What we want to understand is how acid and bases behave, right? When they're reacting together, what exchange takes place between them, and how equilibrium is established, right? How equilibrium is established between them. How do we figure out what concentration of reactants exists, what concentration of products exist? So different equilibrium constants are going to be discovered through this entire chapter. And these equilibrium constants will help you determine the concentrations of products and reactants or acids and bases that exist in the entire solution. That is what we want to do. Figure out concentrations using concentration constants. Okay. Now, one thing that you already know from before in A levels itself, that is AS and also beginning of A2, something called Kc. Kc is called concentration constant of an equilibrium solution. So whenever you have a certain solution and you have acids and bases reacting together, or you have a solution in general, after a point the solution reaches equilibrium, where it stops sort of dissociating and stops forming bonds at the same time. Or it doesn't really stop, but the rate of forward reaction equals to the rate of backward reaction. Again, what does that mean? The rate of breaking bonds or dissociating is equal to the rate of forming bonds. Okay. Now, in most cases, there is in forward reaction both breaking and forming bonds happen, and in backward reaction again both breaking and forming bonds happen. Both takes place in forward and backward reaction. But there are multiple sorts of equilibriums, multiple sorts of solutions. Some where only dissociation takes place, some where there is reaction taking place. So there are multiple scenarios, and we will discover through examples many of these cases. Amazing. Let's look at one of the examples, that is H2S, sulfide type of element, substance, and you have water. And what will happen over here is one of them is going to act like an acid, the other is going to act like a base. And in this entire reaction process, what's going to happen is H2S loses a hydrogen ion. Okay, loses a hydrogen ion. So H plus is lost by H2S, and what that gives H2S is a minus charge. As this happens, H2O gains the H plus and becomes H3O positive. Okay, so which one acted like an acid over here? H2S acted like the acid in the forward reaction. H2O acted as the base in the forward reaction. And the backward reaction, what's happening? HS is going to act like a base, because it's going to, in the backward reaction, it gains the H plus. Okay, and again in the backward reaction, H3O is going to donate the H plus, so it is the acid in the backward reaction. Now, this equilibrium, this solution itself, there are reactants and there are products. This solution itself is going to reach equilibrium, where at some point the rate at which the reaction between these are happening, that is conversion from H2S to HS and H2O to H3O, the rate of these conversions is going to be the same as compared to HS converting to H2S and H3O converting to H2O. So the rate of forward reaction, rate of backward reaction is going to be equal, and that is called the equilibrium being reached. Okay, and we can find a number to establish that equilibrium. We can find a number which will say if this number is visible in the solution, that means that your solution is in equilibrium. What is that number? That number is the concentration of products. So concentration of your HS and H3O plus divided by the concentration of your reactants, H2S and H2O. This ratio of the concentration of products by reactants at equilibrium is a concentration constant. It's not going to change because, as I told you, at equilibrium the forward reaction rate and backward reaction rate is equal. That means the relative ratio of product and reactants don't change. If two products are converting to reactants, two reactants are also converting to products. So if there were 10 here, there is still 10 here. Nothing is changing. If there were 20 here and 10 here, it is still 20 here and 10 here. The rate is equal. So if the rate is equal of conversion at equilibrium, we assume that and consider, and it's a fact, that your ratio of the product and reactant should be the same at equilibrium. And it's a specific number, and that number is Kc. Okay? I'm stretching this part so much because I want to absolutely grill this in your brain so that everything moving onwards that we study becomes very easy for you. Right? Give me a moment. Good. Now, so if you had to write it down, how would you write it down? You write out the products, so HS minus, times the other product, H3O plus, and you multiply them. This third bracket is very important. Many people forget to add the third bracket. The third bracket signifies that you're working with concentration. Whenever you give the third bracket, that means concentration of this substance. So H3O with third bracket means concentration of H3O plus. Simple. Okay? So you multiply the concentration of the products in the numerator, and you multiply the concentration of reactants in the denominator. One more thing I need to add is, well, it doesn't matter what you have as the reactants and products. It could also be, O2 or N2 or whatever. All of these are also considered in the Kc equation. So if those are the products, you write it in the numerator. So a lot of people have confusion sometimes. Do we just include things which dissociate in the equation or the solution? The answer is no. In this case, you're considering, there are cases where you only consider the soluble or the parts which convert to ions only. That's a different thing. It will be defined by the type of reaction constant. In this case, in case of Kc, in case of concentration equilibrium constant, all you do is take the product divided by your reactants concentration, and you multiply them. Okay, not add. Don't add. You multiply them. Okay, so that's pretty much it. If you have any confusion, let me know. Sounds good? Whatever number this is going to stay the same. And how that really helps is, essentially, if let's say you know the H's concentration, you know the H2O concentration, and you know this concentration, you can figure out H3O concentration, because you know Kc at equilibrium is the same. So Kc perhaps will be given to you, right? So essentially, if you know that the solution has reached equilibrium, and you know only 3 of the concentrations, and you know the equilibrium constant, you can find out any of the other missing concentration that you want to find out. That's the usefulness of it. But yeah, so that is the basic introduction. That was the introduction, right? Yeah. And now acid and bases, this is the bulk of everything. We are only going to be working with acid and bases because it is the only thing to work with. There's something called the Bronsted-Lowry theory, and this says that acids are proton donors. So anything that is acidic will donate H+. Anything that is basic in nature, is a base, will accept H+. Okay, it accepts the H+. So NH3 aqueous will accept the H+, aqueous means in solution, dissolved in solution, and becomes NH+. Okay, good. Now NH+ sometimes can act as acids because it donates H+ and forms NH3 aqueous. So, and the important part is really that many things that are known as acids can act as bases depending on the solution. So if there are two acids, the one that is less of an acid will act as a base. So the conversation often is you don't care about intrinsically what the substance is, acid or base. What you care about is on relative terms compared to in the solution, is it more acidic compared to this or that? If it is more acidic, it will act as an acid. If it is less acidic, it will act as a base. So it's always relative terms you're worried about compared to other substances you have in the solution. Now, conjugate acid and base, what does that mean? If a reactant and the product is linked by a difference of one proton or an H+ ion, it is known as a conjugate pair. Let's see what that means. Let's take an example. HClO2, I guess chlorous acid it is, and HCOOH, methanoic acid. Both are what? Acids, right? It's chlorous acid over here, HClO2, and this is methanoic acid. Both are acids, my friend. But one will act as a base, the other will act as an acid. Whichever is more acidic, more donating inclination will be the acid. The other will be the base. Now let's see what the reaction is. We have chlorous acid, you have methanoic acid. And as the product, you have what? Chlorate ion? What is this called? Probably chlorate ion. So you have formed this as a base, and the other product is an acid. Okay, HCOOH2+. It has gained an H+. Okay, so what are the conjugate pairs over here? That is the moral we want to get to in this case. This and this. What is not this? Sorry. And this, what is the difference between these two? The only difference is one H+ ion. Over here, you have ClO2-. It is missing an H+. If you add an H+ over here, it becomes HClO2 neutral. Does that make sense? And over here, you have HClO2. So the only difference between these two are H+, and hence they are a conjugate pair. In case of HClOOH and HCOOH2+, the difference is again in H+. This is neutral over here, and it gains one H+ and becomes H2+. So what has happened over here? The difference is one H+. So it's again a conjugate pair. Do we see what conjugate pair means? Difference of one H+. So in the forward reaction, you have HCOOH converting to HCOOH2. Okay. And in the backward reaction, what happens is HCOOH2 converts to HCOOH. Okay. Okay. Great. Let's take another example. Let's say you have H2S and H2O reacting. And by the way, just to reiterate, over here, since HCOH is lesser of an acid, it acts as the base and gains H+ and becomes, in the product form, it becomes more acidic. And then in the reverse process, it is acting as an acid and forming HCOH. So you get the point. That is why I said it is always relative terms. Now H2S plus H2O, what's going to be an acid, what's going to be a base? Let's see. In the forward reaction, it is forming HS minus, okay, and it is forming H3O plus acid. So which one is the base? H2O is the base because it's gaining the H plus and forming H3O plus. Which one is acid? H2S is the acid because it's donating the H plus. Amazing. What are the conjugate pairs? Conjugate pairs are this because the difference is H plus, and another conjugate pair is this, which is again a difference of H plus. Over here, what's the conjugate pair going to be? You have a base over here, and then you have an acid over here. Why are they base and acid? Because H2O is going to be donating one H plus, and it is going to donate to this base, and it forms CH3NH3 plus. So one H is added over here, and it forms H3 plus. So over here, H2O loses the H plus and forms an oxide, OH, oxide ion. Conjugate pairs are again H2O and OH. Difference is H plus, and over here the methylamine and CH3 and H3 plus. Okay, because the difference is H plus only. Do we get that? Give me a moment. So whenever you have a difference of H plus, you can consider them to be a conjugate pair. Okay. And the interesting part, the reason I've showed this to you, these two specific examples, is because over here H2O acts as what? Base. Over here H2O acts as what? Acid. The duality of water. Okay? And it's not just water. Anything can act as anything. And I want to re-emphasize this. The substance, the acids, the bases can be not acids and can be not bases. It depends what you have it reacting with. Same goes with electrode potentials, electrochemistry. It is always relative terms. Things you know as donators of electron in general with its intrinsic property, it doesn't necessarily need to be true. Depends on concentration, depends on what you have what else you have in the concentration itself, or in solution itself. And the reason I'm flat posting this so much is this is a conceptual lacking in many students, because they go in memorizing a lot in chemistry and they end up scratching their head when things don't seem like they're already prepared of. So you have to break and think from first principles. I keep repeating this even in physics when teaching physics. I do the same in chemistry because I see a bigger problem in chemistry. Most people studying chemistry just memorizes and goes, which is fine, but like if you want to get that A star, I feel like getting A star in chemistry is harder, but like that's my opinion. Anyways, so yeah, whenever you're in equilibrium, both the forward and backward reaction takes place. So again, acid turns into base and base turns into acid. Both things are happening at the same time. And that's it for this video. We will continue with everything in the next video.